again, Razorbacks, a great team, a great program, a great year. I think they fall in the round of 32, at least that's my prediction. I don't think they'll make it on to the Sweet 16. I just think St. John's is too good. All right, everyone's got to have a little fun with themselves, right? Welcome into Luttie's Look Back episode number 26. That was my very wrong prediction from last week, as I picked St. John's to beat the Razorbacks, as did many people, so I don't think I'm alone in that. And of course, that didn't happen. St. John's didn't beat the Razorbacks. Arkansas won. I do want to point out, and if we'll pull up my bracket again, I picked a lot of those other games correctly, so you got to give me credit there. I picked the correct upset with Drake beating Missouri. I know that was kind of a little bit of a popular upset, but I picked that one, so give me credit. And then I picked Texas Tech to advance to the Sweet 16. I picked Arkansas to beat Kansas. So if you're a Hog fan out there, you're like, man, Nick just hates the Hogs. He didn't pick them over St. John's. Well, I picked them over Kansas. So you should be at least appreciative of me for doing that for you, Hog Nation. And then I genuinely thought that's what would happen in the bracket. I thought St. John's would win, and that's obviously not what happened. Arkansas won. They defeated Texas Tech. We'll discuss a lot on my show today, as we always do, but no topic bigger than the Sweet 16. Arkansas is advancing to the next round of the NCAA tournament. The Hogs take down Kansas in round one, then an even bigger upset in round two, take down St. John's on Saturday. We'll start my show, how we always do, with my three big things for the Razorbacks in this past weekend of games. As I mentioned, they take down Kansas, they take down St. John's. My three big things, summarizing it here quickly. The first one, closing out games. A 15-5 run to beat Kansas, a 9-2 run to defeat St. John's. The second thing, physicality and effort won them these games. The St. John's won more than the one against the Jayhawks, but it was the more physical team, the team that gave more effort, that won these games, and that was the Razorbacks. The third big thing is how the freshmen came to play this past weekend. Again, especially in the St. John's game, but you got to give credit to Boogie Fland, Billy Richmond, and Carter Knox. So let's go back up to the top. Let's talk about my first big thing. This team knew how to finish. And we've seen it a lot of times this season. They've gone up, they've had runs, they've gone up by double digits in the second half, and then they blow those leads. And sometimes they lose, sometimes they win by close, but it's just frustrating that they blow it. So we knew when Arkansas had the lead against Kansas and had the lead against St. John's, everyone, I hope you guys watching, if you watch my show, you kind of knew, all right, let's not get too comfortable with this lead. And they let both the teams kind of come back into it, and both the teams that Arkansas faced were great teams. But then it's the way that Arkansas finished these games that gave them the win. That's the reason they're sitting in the Sweet 16, because of these three reasons. But the first big reason is because they knew how to close out games, and they did it in this one. Now, in particular for the St. John's game, it did help that the Johnnies didn't shoot the three ball very well in this game. Neither did Arkansas, though. Arkansas with 2 for 19 from beyond the arc. St. John's not a lot better, and they're not a team that shoots the three ball particularly well. They take a lot of pride in their defense, but it helped that the last few minutes they were kind of just jacking up three-pointers, and that they missed them, and that helped Arkansas go on to win the game. Again, there's been so many times they've had these chances to close out games, and they haven't, especially early on. I would say midway through the conference season, there seemed like there were a couple of these games where they couldn't close out a lead, or they would have close games and they couldn't find a way to win. And that's all that it's about this time of year, finding a way to win. And that's what they do in this game. They close it out, they win both these games, and they're on to the Sweet 16. Now, my second big point, physicality and effort won them these games. St. John's was supposed to be like the most physical team in the entire country. And I'd put them up there with teams I've seen Arkansas play this season. That first 10 minutes, I was like, wow, we're going to need – it's good that we have Boogie Fland, not that he's the most physical specimen of a basketball player that there is, but just to have an extra body out there helped Arkansas more than we'll ever realize. Not because he had a great game or because he made a three-pointer or made a nice bucket in the first half against St. John's, but purely to have guys rotating in and out so you can have guys not tired when they're out there. And so they can close out these games, because maybe that's the reason they couldn't do it in some of these games in SEC play, was because they only had 7 players. and they got tired down the stretch. Having that extra player, Boogie Fland, was so crucial to giving them the ability to have maximum effort, maximum physicality in this game. Arkansas was the more physical team. And yes, they were out-rebounded in this game by St. John's. Again, a really good rebounding team was the Red Storm, but not good enough to get the win. Even though they had their struggles in this game, the three-point shooting struggles, the rebounding struggles. What mattered at the end of the day was that they were the more physical team and they won the game. I couldn't have imagined this game if Arkansas's Adu Thiero was playing. Folks, you remember, if you watch their games this season, you remember how physical Thiero is. If they would have had him, they would have won by 15. They would have won by 20 points. They would have beat Kansas by 20 points. The good news is, I don't know, I'm pretty confident he's coming back for the Sweet 16. He was questionable. He was practicing. This gets into a whole other conversation. Maybe we'll get to it later. He was practicing the day before. It was on Friday. He was practicing on Friday before they played Saturday. People were like, ooh, he's going to play. Cal was like, ooh, he might play, he might not. And he didn't play. But now, after, 5 days more of rest, 6 days, because they'll play Thursday, I think Adu Thiero's playing in this game. So I think COG fans should be really confident going forward. But I can imagine him playing in this game with all the physicality there is because he's the most physical player that Arkansas has. But they still won the game without him. Lastly, of my 3 big points, the freshman stars showed out. And again, most specifically in the St. John's game because it's more fresh on our minds right now, myself in particular. Boogie Fland, Billy Richmond, Carter Knox. Let's start with Boogie. And I talked about him briefly. Just having him in the rotation, that was enough. That was enough. He didn't have to score a single point. He just had to be out there as a body. And he was. And he did what he needed to do. He played 20 minutes. Apparently he had a minute restriction of 10 to 15 minutes we're going to play him. He played 20 minutes in the St. John's game and probably similarly in the Kansas game. I didn't write it down. 6 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists in the game against St. John's, and also 1 steal. A very crucial steal with maybe 3 or 4 minutes left to go in the game, and that steal was big. It turned the momentum a little bit, and it just got St. John's frustrated. Our defense frustrated them. Arkansas's defense frustrated them. So I was really impressed by Boogie Fland and his play, his intense defense. He played well for the Hogs, especially for having not played in forever, 2 months maybe, somewhere around there. He hasn't played, and he played well in this game, and he played well in the Kansas game too, and he's going to play even better in the Sweet 16. So I'm really excited, looking forward to that. Billy Richmond, he was the star. He led Arkansas in scoring, 16 points and 9 rebounds, a career high 16 points. And if you remember in this game, it wasn't like, he was the star player, he was cooking, he was hitting step-back three-pointers. Nah, he didn't make a three-pointer. Most of his points came inside the paint. There was 1 or 2 that were just weird mid-range. But he got half of his points just hustle plays. Just hustle plays. And that is Billy Richmond to a T. He is a hustle player. Every 16 points he got in this game was earned and well-deserved. And he led the Razorbacks in scoring, and it's good to see him have a good day. Carter Knox, 15 points, 6 rebounds, 4 blocks. 4 blocks in this game for Carter Knox, including 2 within the first few minutes of the game, back-to-back that were just huge. Huge momentum plays. Huge, exciting, get the crowd going, or quiet the crowd in this case because it was in Providence, and probably 80% of the fans there were rooting on the Johnnies. But Carter Knox said, be quiet. Be quiet. Be quiet, St. John's fans. The Razorbacks are here, and we're here to win and make it on to the Sweet 16, and that's what they did. So those are my 3 big things from Arkansas's round of 64 and round of 32 wins as they advance to the Sweet 16. Here's Coach Cal talking about what I just talked about with just how special his freshmen are and the magic of this team.
Well, they're not afraid, and they want to prove themselves. I don't believe any of them were all freshmen in our league. Is that true? I think they have a little chip on their shoulder about that. But they're talented. They're fun to coach. I mean, I told them this is as rewarding a year as I've had based on the fact of how far we've come. And that these kids believed in each other. Told them many times, you're never going to disappoint me. Just go play. We'll figure stuff out. Like I said prior to the game, how about we give ourselves a chance to make some magic? Let's just go fight like heck, play free and loose. Whatever it happens, happens, but let's go see if we can create magic. And that's what I said before the game.
Well, and magic was certainly made for the Razorbacks over the weekend, taking down Kansas and St. John's to advance to the Sweet 16. You can tell where I'm at now. We're at the big board. This is a look at the bracket, just the bottom left portion of your bracket, the West region. Here's how everything looked when we talked about it a week ago, and I made my predictions that were somewhat right, somewhat wrong, let's be honest. Here's how everything looked a week ago. Now let's fill it in and see where it is now. You can see the 4 teams left out of this region: Florida, Maryland, Texas Tech, and Arkansas. The Razorbacks, the only team that's really not supposed to be there. The rest of them kind of panned out how we thought that they would. Before we zoom in, let's talk about Texas Tech and then this matchup, at least what they did to get here to face off against the Razorbacks. First, a win over UNC Wilmington, just a 10-point win, a win in which they shot the most three-pointers they've ever had in program history. So there's one thing to know when you're watching this game on Thursday when the Razorbacks and Red Raiders face off. They like to shoot the three ball. Now, I say that the next game they turn around. Thankfully, they did get a little bit lucky, all right? They played an 11 seed in Drake. This will be the third double-digit seed they've faced, which you would say might be kind of easy as opposed to playing a St. John's team or playing a Missouri team, but they're here, and that's all that matters. You make it to the Sweet 16. At this point in the season, especially in the round of 32, all these teams are good, so I don't really buy the take that, they played a double-digit seed, so they don't deserve to be here. No, I think they would have beaten Missouri if Missouri was there, with all due respect to the Tigers. But they beat Drake, and now, as I was talking about with the three-pointers, they only made 2 3-pointers when they faced off against the Bulldogs and won that game on Saturday to advance to the Sweet 16. They did a lot of their work inside because a lot of their work worked inside, as opposed to a team like UNC Wilmington where they're able to shoot a bunch of threes and make a bunch of threes. A team like Drake, they were able to pound it inside and be physical in the paint and get the win over the Bulldogs to advance to the Sweet 16. And then the top portion of your bracket, Florida just pulling away against the 2-time defending champs UConn to advance to the Sweet 16. And Maryland, our first buzzer beater of March Madness, and man, it was a pretty one. Well, a tough one, I guess, if you're a Colorado State fan, but a pretty one from Maryland. If you watch that replay, pretty sure the dude took 3 steps before he shot that buzzer beater. Doesn't matter at this point. They've advanced to the Sweet 16. They're a really good team if Arkansas is going to have to face off with them in the Elite 8. But now, as we've seen how things have progressed throughout this past weekend, let's zoom in. Let's look at the 4 teams that we have left: Florida, Maryland, Texas Tech, and the Razorbacks. And first, let's go ahead and predict our first game of this bracket before we talk about Texas Tech and Arkansas. In my opinion, I've got Florida advancing and taking down Maryland. I talked about this a week ago. I think Florida is one of the best teams in the nation right now. They've showed it all season in the SEC. They've shown it at times this past weekend in March Madness. They had to get past an easy 16 seed and then past a pretty good UConn team that's a 2-time defending champs, as I mentioned. So I got them advancing. Between Texas Tech and Arkansas, look, I talked about it a little bit with the Red Raiders, a team that shoots the ball well from beyond the arc but is not afraid to get physical and get inside and beat you from inside the paint. They got 3 guys you want to look out for. If you're watching this game on Thursday, 3 major players that Arkansas is going to have to slow down. It starts with JT Toppin. If he's playing good, if JT Toppin is playing good, the Red Raiders are a really good team. And if he plays good, that's the reason they're supposed to be one of the best teams in the country. I think they have the 5th or 6th best odds to win it all at the beginning of when this bracket came out. So they have really good odds to take down the Razorbacks and advance. But JT Toppin, a really good player for them, as is Chase McMillan and Darian Williams. Both of them have also contributed, averaging 14 points per game to Toppin's 18 points and 9 rebounds. Toppin is a big guy. He's going to be low and inside for the Red Raiders team. It's probably going to be a Jonas Adu, a Du Thero, assuming he returns, will be in charge of guarding those guys. I like Thero probably guarding Darian Williams. They match up similarly to me. The thing about watch out for Williams, he's very physical down low, but he can also beat you from outside and make some threes as opposed to The top end is just a physical player down low, and he can handle the ball every now and then as well. So top end, McMillan, Williams, those are the three players that the Razorbacks have to shut down to take down the Red Raiders. Let's talk more about Texas Tech. It's a team that is really, really good offensively. Their offense is what makes them special. Defense, not as much. Not quite as lopsided as St. John's. When we talked about St. John's a week ago, it was a team that defensively was really good and then offensively struggled at times. Texas Tech is a team that offensively is really good and defensively is also decent. I don't think they struggle defensively, and I think they are towards the bottom third in their conference as far as defensive ratings and defensive statistics go. But I still think they're a really good they're a good defensive team and then a really good offensive team. So it's kind of a flip to what the Razorbacks face in St. John's. Hopefully they'll be ready to go against the Red Raiders team. But you've probably heard me talk enough about Texas Tech. You probably want to get my prediction. My prediction, and this isn't just like a prediction. This is genuinely who I think will win this game. Let's pop it up here. How about the Razorbacks? I got the Razorbacks advancing to the Elite Eight, taking down Texas Tech on Thursday and advancing for a rematch with the Florida Gators, who Arkansas played earlier in the season. They played okay. They played good enough to win, but they didn't pull it out in the end. And I just mentioned it earlier, how games this season, they just haven't been able to pull them out, which they did in these past two games. Now, can they do that against Florida? We'll see. I don't want to jump too ahead of ourselves because, again, they got to get past a Texas Tech team that is not as good as Florida, but a really good team. If Texas Tech were to advance here, I would pick Florida. I'm still picking the Razorbacks to advance to the Elite Eight. And I think if it does come down to it where the Razorbacks make it here, they've got a really big challenge with the Gators. I would lean Gators right now. I'm not going to fill it out because I don't know how confident I am in picking either one of these teams. I would lean the Gators right now. But I like the Razorbacks against the Red Raiders. So that is my bracket prediction. There's a little bit of information that you might need to know that might be useful for you as you prepare and get ready for this game in the Sweet 16. Arkansas and Texas Tech facing off in San Francisco. Again, if they win that game, they'll advance to the Elite Eight, be one win away from making it to the Final Four. If they do make it to the Final Four, you're looking at an Auburn or a Michigan State that they probably have to face off against. A couple of other options there that they could face, like a Michigan. There's one more team up there that is escaping my memory. It's an Ole Miss is the other team that Arkansas could potentially face. Those are the four teams left in the bracket above them that Arkansas could face if we're talking about this a week from now in the Final Four, which is pretty crazy. But let's take it one game at a time, Hog fans. They got to get past the Red Raiders and then face off against a really good Florida Gators team. All right, that is my bracket breakdown. We'll see if the Razorbacks can pull off the upset against Texas Tech, and then assuming that Florida takes care of business against Maryland, what they can do against the Gators. All right, on to Arkansas State now. On the men's side, let's start. Man, it was a heartbreaking loss as they fall. And basically a buzzer beater. North Texas hits a shot with a second and a half left to go, and then the clock expires. I think A-State may have had a full court shot at the buzzer. Wasn't even close. Man, I don't know what else to say about it except it was a heartbreaker. I mean, I do have some more notes, but Arkansas State, just such a great season for them. We're going to talk about the same thing with the women here in a bit, but man, to fall in a game like this, I mean, that's the beauty of March, is you have games like this that come down to the wire. The Red Wolves were so close. They tied the game with like 10 seconds left. At the end of the day, it's big players hit big shots, and that's what happened with North Texas. A-State was a little bit too little too late to kind of have that momentum, to have a little bit of a run, to have some energy there at the end to try to get the win. They didn't make the shots they needed to down the stretch. And to me, North Texas, they seemed like a better team, and they were. They were the 2 seed in the NIT bracket. A-State was the 3 seed. A-State wasn't supposed to win. They weren't projected to win, but they were close. They never led in this game, and it kind of seemed like the Mean Green were the better team for a lot of this game. They had the home court advantage, and Arkansas State, well, let's talk about the good and the bad real quick before I move on and take a glance at the bracket. The good, they only turned the ball over 5 times. That's good. That's good. On the road, when you're playing in a high-intensity environment, I don't care that it's the NIT, it's a high-intensity environment. You only turn the ball over 5 times. That's impressive to me. Isaiah Nelson was a stud in this game. 16 points, 14 rebounds. I'm mad at myself because I should have looked at, on this roster, who is not going to be back next season. Who's a senior that won't be back next season? Because I don't know if I know. Isaiah Nelson, I want to say, is a youngin. I want to say he's a sophomore, but I don't know that off the top of my head. I'll be completely honest with you. But he's a good player, and he's played great this season. Had a lot of double-doubles, a lot of potential there to go forward if he wants to stick around. That's the whole thing with how it is these days. You don't know if, even if guy's a freshman, you're like, he's coming back. No, he might not be coming back next year. He could be a star on the player and go to somewhere else. He could be really bad on the team and go somewhere else. He could be mid on this team and go somewhere else. It doesn't matter. That's how the transfer portal works these days. So that could be true for Isaiah Nelson or a Taryn Todd or a Darian Ford or a Terrence Ford. So that's the good, was Isaiah Nelson in this game, and they didn't turn the ball over. The bad, I hate to call him out, but it's Joseph Pinion. He had 1 point in this game. He didn't make a single shot. I think he made a free throw. That was his only made shot of the game. He was 0 for 6 from field goal range and 0 for 3 from beyond the arc. When you have big moments like this, I talked about it with North Texas, big players step up. That's what happened with North Texas and Jasper Floyd in this game-winning shot. Joseph Pinion never got going. Never got going. And that's 1 point it's got to be a season low. I don't think he's had a game as bad as this season. Now, he's had worse shooting performances, but to only shoot the three ball 3 times, he averages like 6 or 7 threes a game, and he's only shooting it 3 times. So credit to North Texas and what they were able to do to shut him down. But, man, you want your big player, and he's not their best player, but he can be if he gets hot at the right time, but he wasn't in this game. And that was just the case with the Red Wolves. A lot of great players, a great season, but just not enough in this game to get the win. But a lot to hang their hats on because it was a good season. It was a good season. That came short of March Madness and came short of a quarterfinal berth in the NIT. Let's take a look now at the bracket and see what it looks like. I know, Arkansas State's not in it anymore, but this is, by the way, not updated after yesterday's games. Haven't had a chance to do that, but you can see kind of top left of your screen there. Arkansas State fell to North Texas. The biggest reason I want to talk about this bracket, one, it's going to be the NIT Final Four is going to be played at Hinkle Fieldhouse this year, which would be cool. 2, if Arkansas State would have won, Oklahoma State also won, and A-State would have been hosting OSU, I'm pretty sure, tomorrow night, which is really frustrating because they get to host another home game, another nationally televised game, another game to keep your players and your head coach for another game, because a lot of the players could be gone next year. The head coach could be gone. He's on a lot of hot boards to be the next head coach somewhere else. So they'll just have another game. And also, now Oklahoma State is not amazing this season. That's why they're in the NIT. But they just upset SMU. And if you remember, Oklahoma State has a guy named Devontae Davis on their team. Devo Davis, a former Razorback. So I think it'd be kind of cool. It would have been cool. Now it's just a hypothetical to see Darian Ford and Joseph Pinion on A-State face off against Devo Davis and Oklahoma State. 3 guys that are in-state, former Razorbacks, in-state guys who played Arkansas high school basketball. Like, that would have been a fun game. That would have been a cool storyline, But that's not what happens. That's a look at the NIT bracket. All right, on the women's side of things for the Red Wolves, they suffer a pretty brutal loss, 69-point loss to a really good UConn team, but still pretty crazy that they lost 103-34. It's an unreal score. But knowing UConn, it's not that crazy if you've kept an eye on UConn women's basketball in the last decade plus. They're that good. They always are that good. And Arkansas State just ran into a Huskies team that was incredible. That was really good. That took down the Red Wolves and took them down pretty easily. And it was funny because, Arkansas State, they scored the game's opening bucket. They were up 2-0. And even me watching, with all due respect to Arkansas State, it's nothing against Arkansas State. It's just how good UConn is. So I don't want to paint a picture that I'm being disrespectful to them. Arkansas State started up 2-0, and I stood up. I was watching this game on my couch. I stood up, and I stood up and did a round of applause because I was like, "You're beating UConn. That's probably not going to happen for very long." And it didn't. Then UConn won a 22-0 run, and they went on to dominate. If you watched last week, and I'll give you a quick recap if you didn't, I broke down, I said 3 ways that Arkansas State would pull off an insane upset against UConn. There's 3 things that they have to do, 3 big things. There's a lot of things they would have to go right for them to pull off this upset. But the 3 things that were on my mind that I was thinking about what they needed to do was this. 1, slow down Paige Beckers. 2, shoot a lot of 3-pointers, make a lot of 3-pointers. And 3, turn the Huskies over, because that's what A-State's good at doing. They're good at pressuring teams. They're good at forcing turnover, getting out in transition, and making a lot of 3-pointers. Let's start with the first one. They kind of slowed down Paige Beckers. That was the only thing they did right, but UConn didn't really need Paige Beckers. She only scored 11 points, but they have so many other weapons. And I kind of mentioned that, like, they got, even if you slow down Paige Beckers, you got to slow down like 7 other people on their team that are better than every player at Arkansas State. Beckers only had 11 points. AZ Fudd, on the other hand, for the UConn Huskies, 27 points, 6 steals, 7 assists. Pretty sure she had most of that in the first half. And then Sarah Strong, the forward, the freshman that I talked about last week, 20 points, 12 rebounds, 5 blocks, 5 assists. There was a clear height advantage that you just can't teach height, you know? Like Arkansas State was clearly just smaller, and that's the way it was. The second thing, the key that I had for them to beat UConn was to shoot a lot of threes and make a lot of threes. Well, they shot 40 threes. They made 6 of them, 15% from beyond the arc. They didn't shoot a ton at first. It's almost like they were trying to get the ball inside, which isn't their specialty. They should have just shot 3-pointers from the get-go. I think down the stretch, they're like, oh, we should just start shooting 3-pointers because we're down by 35 at the end of the first quarter. And that's what they did. And they didn't make a lot because UConn just had a hand in their face every time. UConn played like it was the national championship. It wasn't like, hey, you're a 15 seed. It's your first time in the tournament? Okay. All right, go ahead, shoot a 3. Oh, that was so close. Good job. No, they didn't do that. They played hard, intense defense against the Red Wolves. So give a lot of credit to the Huskies and Gino Ariema, their head coach, for getting them ready to go for this game against an Arkansas State team that was somewhat ready to go. The players talked afterwards, and they were blaming on themselves, like they had an off day and all this stuff. But they didn't play that bad. It was just UConn being better. That was the second big thing. The third one, if they wanted to pull off the upset, they were going to have to turn over UConn a lot. They did not do that. They turned them over 12 times. It was kind of flipped. They turned them over 12 times, but themselves got turned over 20 times. UConn started playing press defense, which is what Arkansas State usually does to opponents. UConn gave them a taste of their own medicine and really hurt them early on with those turnovers. So a tough loss for Arkansas State, but a really great season. And let's hear what head coach Destiny Rogers had to say after the game.
I think that the biggest obstacle that we faced today was we played with a lot of fear. I mean, it's UConn. They're probably going to compete for a national championship. They're great players. So when you're at the mid-major level, obviously it's hard to have players like that on your team naturally. But I think that we could have absolutely competed a lot better. It's our first time ever being here, and there's no better teacher than experience. Does this hurt? Does this sting? Yeah. I think that we absolutely have a future in this. So for me, what this does for me is it motivates me. And it fuels me to go out and get the players that we need to come back and be better. And, you know, when I pass this net down to whoever I pass it down to, I want them to understand that when you work hard, you trust God, and you do things the right way, you can do anything you set your mind to.
So again, a brutal loss for Arkansas State, but a really great season. And briefly before we move on, I do want to look ahead at what they have going forward. So And Coach Rogers briefly mentioned it. I didn't get to show in that clip there because of time, but she mentioned the seniors on this team, the seniors that won't be back for next season, that are all new this year. All these seniors that I'm about to list off real quick here, they all transferred in from somewhere else. They transferred in, chose to play for Arkansas State. So she has a lot of thanks to give to them. But the seniors that won't be playing next year, Anna Griffin, Mimi McAllister, Kennedy Montu, really great player, usually comes off the bench. Kiana Morgan, Nessa Sam Grant, and Shawnee Brown. And if you watch the game against UConn, I think it's what they've been doing most of this season. They started their starting five, then they all subbed out, and then a whole new starting five came in, or a whole new backup five, whatever you want to call it. That's the way they've done it most of this season, I think. So that's to say that there wasn't just like 6 or 7 players, sub in, sub out. They did a whole rotation in and out. That shows you that they have a balance over a lot of really good offensive and defensive weapons. But for all those seniors, obviously into the line for them, they'll be moving on to what's next. But a little bit of hope for the future, because the players that can return, again, in the transfer portal world, you never know who will return, but can return. Winter Rogers, the sister of Destiny Rogers, so you would expect that she would be back, right, to play with her sister, or to play for her sister if she enjoyed that, which was a great season for them, so I would assume she did. Chrislyn Rose, only a sophomore, so very talented. I do wonder if she'll hit the portal, because only thing that's diminishing her ability to go to a Power 4 school is her size. She's a little short, so that's maybe why she stays at Arkansas State, but she's a really good player. We'll see what happens with her. Zion Shannon, also really good. Bella Weary, maybe not to the level of some of those others, but another really good player that is an underclassman or a junior, I can't remember, that should return. So there's just a little bit of a list, some of the Arkansas State players and what that looks like going forward. So that is Arkansas State women's basketball and men's basketball. Let's move on quickly before we go to baseball to UCA. They'll be in the WNIT tonight, playing against Abilene Christian at 6:30 at the Ferris Center. It's been 9 days since they last played in that loss to FGCU in the conference championship game. So they've had a lot of time off. Fun fact, FGCU is not even playing basketball anymore. They did make the NCAA tournament, but they lost yesterday, I think 2 days ago, to Oklahoma. So they're out of the NCAA tournament. UCA still playing basketball, so that's cool for them. But they'll be in the WNIT. This is the second round. Abilene Christian. I'm not the expert on Abilene Christian, but I'll tell you this. Bella Earl, because I just did a little bit of research, Bella Earl is their best player. Shut her down, I think you'll be okay. UCA's favorite to win in this game. They should win in this game and advance to the next round. But we'll see what happens tonight. As always, we'll have those highlights on THV 11 for you after the game tonight. So that's women's basketball talk. To Hawk baseball now. They had their SEC home opener over the weekend and swept in a big way unranked South Carolina. I know they're unranked, but it was still an SEC weekend win, still SEC a sweep win, and a dominant win. Friday 12-2 in 7 innings. Saturday 12-3. Sunday 11-4. All the people out there that don't like Nate Thompson, Arkansas's hitting coach, you're starting to like him now, aren't you? And I was right there with you. I was a little concerned about Nate Thompson, and I don't know if I really wanted him back. And granted, it's still very early in the year. Actually, no, it's midway through the year. It's not super early, but I'm scared to say it. Arkansas can hit the ball. Arkansas can hit the ball. And Nate Thompson has done a good job. Maybe it's not Nate Thompson. If you're still a Nate Thompson hater, maybe it's just they have really good players and they did well in the transfer portal. But you got to give a little bit of a nod to Nate Thompson, even if you're a Nate Thompson hater. Arkansas can hit the ball. Pitching, maybe not as good this weekend, but they still had some good performances. Quickly on Friday, Zach Root wasn't perfect, but he was good. 7 innings, gave up 6 hits, but only 2 earned runs, struck out 7. Charles Davalon had a really good weekend, 4 of 5 with 4 hits on Friday, including I think he had a double at some point to help Arkansas score a couple runs. So that was Friday, a good 7-inning win for them. On Saturday, 12-3, 8 runs in the first inning for the Hogs. So that was good. They started out 8-0. Only downside, not really downside, but negative to that game was Gabe Gackle. And Phil Elson actually asked Coach Van Horn about this before yesterday's game. He said, what's up with Gabe Gackle? Like, is there concern there? And Van Horn is basically like, no, we're just confused. Like, he's confused, we're confused, we don't really know what's going on. And I think this was during, this was Friday, so during, I don't know, Arkansas wasn't playing, someone else was playing, but I was keeping an eye on this game, but I wasn't watching closely. I was probably watching March Madness is what I was doing. Probably watching March Madness. So I didn't watch this game super closely, but I kept an eye on it. Gackle only went an inning and 2/3. An inning and 2/3 for your ace. Didn't strike out anybody, gave it 3 earned runs. He's not where you want him to be at this point in the season. You want him to be better. And so hopefully that confusion and questioning from Van Horn and Gackle himself about why he's pitching so poorly, hopefully that leads to, oh, actually it's this. Change your arm slot, or throw the ball different this way, or do your pregame routine differently, or do whatever you did last season because it was working. Or maybe he doesn't work as a starter. Maybe he just comes in for a few innings. Maybe he's not meant to be a starter because he didn't start much last season. Maybe there's a lot of pressure on him. There's a lot of factors to why. And I have an undeniable amount of faith in Coach Van Horn for figuring this guy out, for figuring out Gabe Gackle and getting him back to being himself. So hopefully Gabe Gackle can get back to being himself. The bats, though, again, really good. Vahavo Lloyd, Charles Davalon. The list goes on. Brent Iredale hitting a grand slam yesterday. I mean, the bats got going, and they got going good. So that's exciting. That's promising for Arkansas. Now, if they can get their starting pitching just a little bit better, we'll see. They got Missouri State tomorrow night, which they should take advantage of against, again, a midweek game, so don't put a lot of stock into that if they somehow lose. Don't do it. Next week, or this upcoming weekend, they'll face off. They'll go on the road to Nashville, face off against number 22 Vanderbilt, a Vandy team that just swept Texas A&M. Now, Texas A&M was the preseason number one in the team in the country. Now they're unranked, so I wouldn't put a lot of stock into that. But they did just come off of a sweep. And Vanderbilt's always good. They always got good players. So a good weekend for the Razorbacks. Those are some of my thoughts. Let's hear from Dave Van Horn, what he had to say to the team after the game.
It was going to be tight. Beat them pretty good 2 days in a row. Things went our way a lot. Today, maybe not so much until the 8th. But we did a really good job. I mean, we laid down a couple of really nice bunts. It turned a couple of really good double plays and pitched really well for the most part, honestly. It's like I said yesterday, it's not easy winning, man. Could easily be 2-1 or 1-2. You never know. And so when you get a chance to sweep somebody like you did today, it's a big deal.
All right, to softball now. The Hogs have been struggling a little bit as of late, but a really nice upset series win this weekend at number 7 Tennessee. The Razorbacks taking them down Saturday 6-3 in extra innings, and then yesterday a 9-0 blowout win. Now, at the beginning of this season, you might have been like, okay, that's expected. Arkansas is maybe a little bit better than Tennessee, or they're, two even teams. But the way they've started this year, I think they were 1-4 in the SEC heading into this matchup. Now, I believe they're 3-4. So 2 good wins against Tennessee. They've got the third one tonight against the Volunteers to see if they can sweep them. That'd be an impressive sweep. To go on the road, take down a Vols team that is top 10 in the country, that would be really impressive. Quickly, Saturday, Robin Herron, she's pictured behind me. What a day for her. 16 strikeouts on the night. 16 strikeouts. That ties the most in Arkansas softball program history. So a round of applause to her for a really good performance to lead Arkansas to the win. And then yesterday, Peyton Burnham also had a good day. 6 1/3 innings pitched, 3 hits, 0 earned runs. So the pitching was really good this weekend. Bree Ellis is still batting over 500. Reagan Johnson is also playing good. They've got Reagan Johnson, Reagan Kramer. They have 2 different Reagans? I don't know. I should probably double check on that. But Arkansas is playing good. I know Bree Ellis is definitely playing good, batting over 500 for this team. Again, game 3 tonight. We'll see if they can take down the Vols and sweep them. That would certainly be fun. All right, finally to wrestling. Little Rock competing in the NCAA tournament over the weekend. The team, they finished 17th. Now, that's back-to-back seasons they've finished top 20 in the country. So, again, that's really impressive for a team, for a program that just started like 6 years ago. That's really impressive. And to show, okay, we didn't just have a fluke last year where we finished top 20. We did it again this year. So that's really impressive. I know they probably wanted to do a little bit better. They probably underperformed a little bit. In my limited knowledge of wrestling, I would say they underperformed a little bit, but not a lot of it. 2 wrestlers, I should say, that came in clutch that are now All-Americans, which is a cool title to have if you're them. Stephen Little, who I think was an All-American last year, finished in 7th place, maybe 6th place. I think I may have got these mixed up. And then Matty Bianchi, first-time All-American, so really special for him. The Bianchi family line runs deep in wrestling, and he finishes in 6th or 7th place. I can't remember. I think I wrote it down wrong, to be honest with you guys. But both of them are All-Americans. And so really impressive performances for both of them. Really impressive for Little Rock. Again, to make it to this point, to the NCAA tournament, and to finish inside the top 20. So great season for Little Rock wrestling. We'll finish up my show how we always do with my Lutties look ahead. It is Sweet 16 time for Arkansas men's basketball. As I talked about earlier, it's a good Red Raiders team, but Arkansas has already beat Kansas. They've already beat St. John's. If that same team comes to play like they have been, I think they could do it again and take down, again, a really good Red Raiders team. That game is Thursday in San Francisco in the Sweet 16. Well, that will do it for Luttie's Look Back episode number 26. It's been a fun one. As always, thanks to those who are watching for the first time. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks to my longtime viewers. 26 episodes. It's been a lot of fun. Same time, same place next week. We'll see you then.